Hey, welcome back. It is part 2 of the Enhancement Talent for this Monday. I'm Eric Cornish from WKDQ. We got the Rob from Kiss FM, and we've got Gavin the Destroyer.
That's not accurate at all. But I'm gonna go with it.
We are becoming from the Enhancement Talent to a job squad, I think.
We are. We can put over any superstar at this point.
That's true.
We were looking at ourselves in the iPad earlier, and Gavin goes, "We look like 3 count."
We do. We could be 3 count.
A little bit.
We could be.
What we're going to talk about in this edition is wrestlers that each one of us do not enjoy. Our least favorite wrestlers that everybody else seems to like, but we don't. I don't know. Rob, you want to kick this off here?
Everybody seems to know mine. As soon as we throw out this topic, Eric immediately knew who mine was, and I have so many reasons. This guy was so over. This guy is definitely a wrestling success story, and it's completely lost on me. A lot of our longtime viewers will probably know that I have no positive things at all to say about the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. This is a guy who looked like a fat slob in his best days. He had a liver spot the size and shape of his home state of Texas. And this was a guy, now, people will say, even if you didn't like his ring work, which believe me, I didn't. There's not like a Dusty Rhodes, maybe the Randy Savage match at WrestleMania, that I can say that I really liked. This is a guy who people would point to his promos. His promos to me were nonsensical. They were they sound like nursery rhymes.
Come on, Dad, come on.
I'm living on the edge of a lightning bolt. I lived and dined with kings and queens, and I lived in the gutter with the pork, and the whole thing. It makes no sense to me. And this is a guy, I know he appealed to the Southern types, and I know Eric is a Memphis fan. I don't know where you grew up, Gavin, but he spoke to a lot of people. And that's the one thing that I will give him credit for. He clearly was reaching his audience. He was charismatic. He was reaching the people he was trying to reach. I have no positive memories of him. I think that he was not a good wrestler, in my opinion, not a good talker, in my opinion, a lousy booker, in my opinion, and also lousy on commentary. I don't know how he had the success that he had, and he's my least favorite wrestler of all time. The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Thoughts on that, yeah?
I like Dusty Rhodes, I think, but I do enjoy his sons more than him. Goldust and Cody are just wonderful.
Cody and Goldust to me much better. I love Goldust. I like Cody, and I agree. I'm happy for those contributions. I mean, he looks a mess. When you see him on the network now, his face is all sliced open.
Yeah.
He's got different colors on his face, like he's like gangrene or whatever you call it.
High Def has not been kind to him.
And
no.
and he looks like he smells terrible.
Well, I agree. Dusty has been through the ringer, that's for sure. He's lived a long life. I am a Dusty fan. I was around when he was in his prime. The main part I got to see of was the very end of his NWA career, and then of course his WWF Polka Dot days or whatever. And he made a little resurgence, ECW, things like that. But I like Dusty. I mean, he was never my favorite, but I do like Dusty. I think as a booker. A lot of people give him crap for some of the stuff that he booked, but to be honest with you, he was the producer of that Saturday night TV show for years and years and years, which basically meant he was the booker, and that's some of my favorite stuff of all time. That's stuff I grew up on. But again, we're from different eras.
We're from very different regions too. I don't think he's as big in the Northeast where I'm from as he was around these parts. But even when it comes to booking, he even had a whole term named after him, Dusty Finish.
Right, exactly.
His booking was probably the best of all those things that he did, but he's no one I like to see. I don't get it. And he's one of those guys that you're not allowed to talk badly about. Everything you hear about Dusty from like the boys in their interviews is always endlessly positive, and it makes me want to gag.
Okay, all right. Well, cool. Here's mine. Mine's a little newer than Dusty Rhodes, but Goldberg was my guy.
Okay.
Goldberg, and I'm sure more people could probably identify with that, but I never understood Goldberg. Now, I'm not one of those guys that thought that Goldberg was a ripoff of Stone Cold, because I don't think in any way he was. And anybody that says that is ridiculous.
That's just looking at the surface.
Yeah.
They're both bald, okay.
Yeah,
and they wear
bald,
black.
They both wear black. That's it. That's where the comparison stopped for the two of them. But I remember going to a Nitro taping right at the beginning of the streak when it first was taken off. And I remember going, I just don't get it. And the crowd was going crazy already. I mean, they were buying into this. And I'm going, I just don't see it. I don't, he didn't have much to offer as far as, his moveset. And not only that, but here was the big problem. Even Hogan didn't have a big moveset, but he sold his butt off. Okay. And he made everybody look good until he made that Hulk Up comeback. I don't think Goldberg could even sell. That was the problem. He couldn't sell for anybody, so you couldn't feel sorry for him, and you couldn't get behind him as far as his comeback, because he never had a comeback. He just would smash somebody. So, but I'm also one of those guys, and maybe it's because I didn't like Goldberg, I didn't care that the streak ended the way it did. I thought it was great. Because if you're going to end the streak, why not take 2 guys and a taser to do it?
I understand what you're saying there. He was another guy who definitely connected with his audience. I don't think he was asked to do as much. I'm not sure they wanted him to sell very much.
That's
he
true.
Probably couldn't have.
That's true,
but they worked within his limitations pretty well and made it a very memorable stretch of matches, with Goldberg for WCW fans.
I feel like you have to have that. You can do that for so long, but eventually you have to have more dimensions to your character. After that streak's done, well, what else is left? And I don't think that's why. I think that's why he didn't do well in WWF.
And what's bad about Goldberg is once you go back, like when it was happening, it was so cool, and you're like, oh, this streak is good. But then you go back and rewatch it, you're like, he almost killed several people because he was so like just not ready to be jackhammering people near turnbuckles, like
right.
And he made the tribal tattoo a thing, which we are still feeling the ramifications of.
One of those people he nearly killed, as you say, was my favorite wrestler of all time, the Hitman Bret Hart. Took a Eric Mule kick from Bill.
Yeah.
I don't think that he was a guy who had that passion for the business like most of the people did. It's obvious from reading books and from hearing interviews, a lot of people didn't like working with Goldberg. But they worked within his limitations pretty well. He was a limited worker, and therefore they never asked him to give you more than a 1-star match. Don't give him more than 2.5 minutes.
Right.
So that's probably why that worked and took off. I used to kind of hate Goldberg, but when I watch it back, he was a little less offensive to me. You can get pissed at the people who booked him.
Yeah.
But he did his job.
It was good for what it was, but then you're limited to what you can do afterwards.
Yeah.
All right, Gavin.
All right, mine, the big one. This is gonna upset everybody. I can't stand Ric Flair. I can't. I don't get it. I don't understand why people love him so much. He's supposed to be the womanizer and all this stuff. I just remember playing like Royal Rumble on Super Nintendo and not ever liking him even in video game form.
I had that same memory.
And I was like, he just figure forward you and it looked terrible. I don't like him. I don't like his promos. I don't like the Flair flopping. I hate that every time he fights chops they yell woo. I don't get it. I hate that in every match he's in, he has to, either show his butt, he has to, or bleed everywhere. Like, I don't know why.
This is a great choice, and I used to feel that way. For many years, I didn't get Ric Flair. I thought he looked old. I thought he had a floppy body and like the dusty, he would never be a champion. And then one of my friends in I'll say 1999 or 2000 handed me an RF video of Flair and Steamboat, and it had their entire feud on this 6-hour videotape, and that's what made me turn the corner on Flair.
And I will tell you this about Flair too, and a lot of people say he does the same things. Well, you're going to see the same things when you see a guy who wrestles 8 times a week for 60 minutes. You're going to see some of the same stuff. But here's what I love about Ric Flair, and I've heard it so many times, and then I just this weekend watched the Mid-South DVD that WWE put out, and Terry Taylor tells a story that is just classic Ric Flair, to where, here Terry Taylor is having his big moment, he's got an NWA title shot in the Superdome. Ric Flair doesn't show up till 15 minutes after the show starts, and he has to be carried in the building because he's still drunk from the night before. His hair is all a mess, and Terry Taylor goes crazy going, this is my big moment, he's supposed to make me look good, what happens? And then Ric Flair has the audacity to say, hey, Terry, bring me a cup of coffee in about an hour. And so he's like, now I'm a coffee boy, but fine. Brings him the coffee, and then heads out and just like, man, I'm going to go to the ring, and this is going to be horrible. Well, then Flair comes to the ring. His hair's immaculate, his robe is immaculate. And he said 45 minutes into the match, Terry Taylor's begging Ric Flair to pin him because he's so blown up, and Ric Flair's still going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's I think that's classic Ric Flair, that, that's the old school guy that can go all night and go all day, just like he was saying in his promos. And that's why I like Ric Flair. But I do understand, yes, he's another guy that you're not supposed to say anything bad about.
I can't. I just cannot enjoy him. And then when I read stuff online about him in regular life tay, and that kind of bleeds over. How many times can you put an NWA championship belt up as collateral when the bank's trying to take your house? Nobody else is doing that.
Yeah.
While you will see a lot of the same stuff in his matches, you'll hear a lot of the same songs if you go to a bunch of Rolling Stones concerts too.
True.
And his matches, he's very, very capable, and usually did have great matches. He could really connect with his promo work. His promos were always, I mean, some of the best stuff in his whatever territory he was in. And I grew to really, really respect Ric Flair, and I'd probably put him somewhere in my top 10.
Very cool. Hey, I tell you what, that great ideas, guys.
All over the place.
I think that's cool, and surely we've got some people who want to respond to this. Give us your people that you don't like, or tell us we're horrible for not liking these guys.
Who is your least favorite wrestler of all time? Please shoot us an email. We would love to know.
It's the Enhancement Tally. Gavin, thank you for joining
Yeah,
us. Man, anytime you
I
wanna-
will be back.
Yeah, stop in and hang with us. We
I
certainly
will be on
appreciate it.
I am on a paid per appearance deal right now. So no, not a contract yet, but I'm home now.
All right,
Whether you
well,
want to call us the Enhancement Talent, the Job Squad, 3 counts, we had a good time hanging out with you today. Sayonara.
have a good one.